Now let's talk about connection managers very briefly in this video. And you're going to hear about connection managers on the exam. They're really easy to understand. You're going to really start to like these things. But what's interesting about connection managers is even when you're using them in the data tools environment, you really don't realize exactly what they're doing for you. And it's a bit, I'll say, non-intuitive about the way these things can be used. Okay, so first of all, let's answer the question, what exactly does a connection manager do for me? Well, it simply manages connections to the data source. Now, when you work with SQL data tools here, you're out there in that integration services environment, you really get spoiled really quickly as to just how we don't even think about connecting to data sources. I can tell you from firsthand experience, not too many years back, when we tried to connect to a data source, we had to have the right provider, we had to type it in right, we had to have the connection string just right. And a lot of times you would do a 30-minute search on the internet and places to try to find the right kind of provider, or what's the best type of provider, and so forth. And all that's just kind of taken care of for us now. It's really kind of neat. So what exactly is it taking care of? Well, when the package is running, the connection manager handles the physical connectivity to the data source. Now, not just the database. It's real tempting to say connection to the database, but we're talking about connection to any data source, flat file, Excel, Oracle, anything like that. It also manages our connection strings. And thanks to the way connection managers work, we're almost out of the world of connection strings. And we don't even think about things like initial catalogs and all those other things, and providers and those things that are in connection strings. Providers, I've already mentioned that. These used to be an absolute pain to try to figure out and put in correctly, and they would throw all kind of weird error messages that wouldn't exactly point to a provider issue. And then it also handles authentication, be it trusted or username and password. Those things are just built in there and taken care of for us. So there's a lot of things that the connection manager is taking care of for us. Now, the big deal with connection managers, the way they're implemented now, is they provide a level of abstraction for us between the SSIS package runtime environment and the data sources themselves. Because, and this is what kind of throws people, you'll set up a connection manager and you can use that, but often you'll still have to add a little bit to a data source to be able to actually connect to the data you're trying to work with. Now, this abstraction offers some pretty serious advantages to us. First of all, multiple tasks can share the same connection manager. And again, if you go far enough back into DTS and some of those other technologies, you had to have a lot of different connections in a package, and it could get really confusing and it could get really tedious to set them up. But now we can have multiple tasks sharing the same connection manager, and by the way, the same connection manager can be used as source and destination. And we can also use connections across packages, across multiple packages if we'd like. So what I want to do now is just jump out into SQL Data Tools, and notice I'm just going to create a new project and just kind of click around here just a second here and kind of give you the lowdown, if you will, on connection managers. Now I'll just do an integration services project under business intelligence and give you a real quick run through on these connection managers. Now the connection managers offer you the very simplified environment for connecting to a lot of different data sources. Okay, you'll notice in the standard environment that pops up when I open an integration services project, right down here at the bottom you see connection managers, and then notice up here at the solution level I see connection managers. Now notice they tell you right here to right click and add a new connection manager. So if I right click, notice it's already saying, do you want an OLADB, a flat file, an ADO.NET, analysis services, new file connection, or just a new connection? And if I choose just new connection, notice I see even more choices, right? Excel, DQS server, FTP, HTTP, for the message queue task, for analysis services. This just kind of goes on, and you can see all the things that are out there, okay? So I'm going to cancel and go back, and notice if I right click and say new OLADB connection, it's going to pop up here, and notice it already sees that I have one, right? And so this is one that I set up earlier. Well, I'll do another one right quick here so that you can see it. This is going to, in a wizard type environment, ask me, okay, what's your server name? VTC SP. And if I have multiple servers on the network, I could hit the drop down. Notice I can choose my authentication, and then I choose the database that I want to connect to. Now notice I'm not choosing my particular tables or anything. This is just the connection to the data source, and I can test it there, and there I have it. Okay, and so then later on, when I drag any kind of connection into like a data flow task, right? So I'll grab a data flow task and throw it out here, and then when I use that later on, I'll double click on it, and when I start to drag my sources and destinations in, then I can use that connection. So if I want to use a source assistant and I drag this on, notice one of the first things that it's going to ask me is, do you have a connection manager you want to use? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I'll use this one right here. And then that takes me a step farther and lets me choose exactly which table or command or whatever. And so now I can double click on that data source and go in and choose my table or view. And it's just that simple. Now, the next thing that you need to know before I run out of time here is, and notice this connection's down here, it can be used over and over. If I right click right here and set up a new connection manager, then that's going to create one that can be used across multiple packages in my solution. Connection managers are very easy. They're saving us a lot of work. Just get comfortable with the fact that this establishes the main connection, and then you have the source or destination, you tweak it a little bit and give it a little more information.